Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode in the Mercury Tower of Power series, what has now morphed into the Mercury Tower of Power Concord Boat series. And in this episode, I'm going to install the new helm and steering cable, rack and pinion or whatever you want to call it, into the Concord Boat. So let's get going. And for those of you who missed it in the last episode, I basically talked about that. I ended up getting a deal on this off of eBay, and this is a C-Star Solutions brand no feedback rack and pinion steering system. So this is made to replace the Morse 600 Command series that is what apparently is in my boat now. And there were two versions of this. There's the regular straight cable system, which is what I've got in the boat now, and this is an improved version that has this no feedback technology in it, and it's supposed to eliminate the problem of the during acceleration of the motor trying to turn the steering wheel in your hand and isolate you from that. So let's get going. So I've already temporarily laid in my rack and cable and run the cable just to check the length before I go through the trouble of installing this thing. I sized this replacement cable based on the cable that I took out of the boat, and it's not exactly where I would like it to be, but it should work. And that's more of a problem of I don't know what was on this boat originally for a motor, and the hookup's probably going to be a little bit different than I had planned on, but we'll get to that near the end. So for starters, I'm going to remove the old helm. I already removed the old rack when I was trying to fix that cable. So if you're coming to this video looking for instructions, just basically remove the rack. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's, you know, a few little nuts and bolts, and you can drop the whole rack assembly, which is this part right here. Okay, there's 4 holes, and mount this up against the bottom of the helm. So the first thing I got to do is take off the steering wheel. So you pry off this center cap. Now I probably can leave these 3 screws in here and take this out. Oh, Murphy's Law. Of course it's going to be the size I didn't bring with me. This nut's hard to turn because it's a self-locking nut. Guess I gotta take these screws off. Alright, pretty sure this is supposed to pull off. Alright, let's see. Yep. Tapered shaft. Almost like pins on the side here. Maybe it's a couple of pins that this just clips over. Maybe it's just a matter of squeezing it like this to unlatch it from the pin. That one seems to be off. Yeah, that's all it is a couple of little cast metal pins. Alright, this thing that I didn't know what the hell it did. Apparently all it does is puts a little bit, this kind of acts like a friction brake, and this put a little bit of drag on that. Here's a mud dauber's nest, old one, luckily. I got 3 long screws that go through, feel like they might have nuts on the backside. Oh, dirty stinker, 7/16 inch nuts on the back side, 3/8 on the front. All right. This is an interesting design. This mounting plate, it's got this toothed recessed area so that you can adjust this. You have some adjustment to this that you can do if necessary. Kind of neat. Let's see, does this come out this way? Sure does. All right. I don't know if there's much use for that. All right, so now I know why this thing was just kind of dropped down loose, because it's supposed to be, that nut's supposed to be held captive in here. And what somebody did, by the looks of it, is they over tightened this to the point where it actually broke this casting right here. In other words, this nut should be in here like that. And then since the nut would be captive, when you tighten this would push on this plastic sleeve. All right, let's go get the new helm. Here, when we look at the two helms side by side, you can see there's quite a bit of difference going on here with the no feedback one. It's got this drum that has some sort of a clutch assembly or something in it. Anyways, so the good news is, since I'm replacing an old Morse Command 600, I think that this actually is going to fit just right. So obviously, if this was a new installation, like you built your own boat, you'd have to cut this hole and these 3 holes. And the kit comes with a template right here. The reason why there's 2 templates is because they give 3 mounting options for this. They have a 0 degree, a 10 degree, and a 20 degree mounting. Now, I'm sorry, 90 degree mounting, 10 degree mounting, and 20 degree mounting. So 90 degree mounting means it's basically perpendicular to the axis of the steering column is going to be perpendicular to this plane. Sometimes the dashboard doesn't have any tilt to it, and you want to be able to have the steering wheel tilted a little bit. So you can actually put wedges in there, which interestingly enough they give no part numbers for, and they just call it a mounting wedge, and they're not included in the kit. So I don't know where the hell you're supposed to get those. I don't know if you're supposed to fabricate them or what, but it doesn't matter in my case, because luckily I've already got some tilt here, and I'm going to mount this the same way that the previous one was in here. But that's why you got 2 templates, because if you're going to use the 90 degree or 10 degree mounting angles, you're going to use this template for your holes. If you're going to use the 20 degree, you need to use this template, which takes into account the fact that when you're tilting it like this, it's going to change the spacing of those bolt holes slightly. So the first step is to mount this plate right here, which is called the helm mounting plate. And you want this to face with these rounded bumps sticking up out towards the driver. So this has to go like this. And the holes line up perfectly, which is what I was hoping. You take the 3 longest bolts in that hardware bag. On the back of each one of the bolts, one of these thick washers and one of these self-locking nuts.
So what's wrong? What is that thing?
What thing?
That thing.
You point to, oh, it's a pump.
For what?
Recording. Oh, this uses 7/16 inch on both sides. Alright, so the next step is for me to attach the cable rack assembly here to the helm. But before I do that, I want to make sure my cable is routed the way that I want it. Now, when routing the cable, I don't want you to have any sharp bends in the cable. So the minimum radius of a bend is 8 inches. In other words, if you had the cable curved like that, if you measured that radius of that curve, it would be part of an 8-inch diameter, a 16-inch diameter circle. It would give you an 8-inch radius, just to give you an idea. They do say you can have one, if absolutely necessary, you can have one bend right here where it exits the rack down to a 6-inch radius. But ideally you want to avoid it. And you want to have as few bends as possible. And any place where the cable has to go through the bulkhead, like in the back there where it comes out the back and goes to the motor, they recommend a minimum 1.5-inch diameter hole. So what I haven't decided yet is right now I've got the cable just kind of down low. I don't know whether or not I should have it up higher. I can't remember if there was something that actually supported this cable and kept it from hanging or not. So the helm goes in with the toothed part, the rack on top, not hanging down below. This just rotates, so all I have to do is spin this around. And we're going to attach this to here with the 4 bolts and washers that are in this little bag here. And these bolts appear to have some sort of compound on the threads. It's probably a self-locking compound, a thread locking compound of some type. Usually the friction, the heat generated from the friction of actually screwing these in is what usually activates this chemical. Alright, next up I just have to screw this on. Now during shipping, the threads at the very end here on this shaft got a little damage, so this is a self-locking nut, so it should be hard to screw on once it gets to the nylon bushing. But before it gets to the nylon bushing, it should just go right on. And it doesn't, because the threads are damaged. So these are 1/2-inch 20 threads, so I'm going to use the thread file, just give them a little touch up. There we go. Install the Woodruff key. These 3 screws that hold the steering wheel to the hub had thread locker on them. It's blue thread lock, so I'm going to use some when I reinstall it. I don't want to use the red. The red requires heat to break free, and they obviously didn't want you coming in here with a torch. Last thing is to reinstall this snap-on cap. The tabs on this thing are kind of, well, they're deformed with age, so it doesn't really want to snap in there really well. So I might put a little silicone adhesive on there if I find that it falls off on me. All right, that completes the work at the front of the boat. There's two basic ways that the steering cable will attach at the rear of the boat to the motor. There's the motor mounted version, which essentially this rod goes through this tilt tube, and these threads on the end here are the perfect size for this nut to screw onto. So you actually run this through here, screw this on, that affixes this end of the outer part of the cable from being able to move at the rear of the boat. The rod will then stick out. This will then be sticking out of the other end of the tilt tube. And then there's an dog leg shaped piece of linkage that will attach from this hole over to this point right here. And the way that it's set up actually allows the steering to work perfectly fine, but it also allows for the motor to be tilted when necessary. The second way, which on my previous boat, was that you have something that actually holds on to the outer part of the cable here, like a clamp. And the clamp has a post that is usually attached through a hole in the rear of the boat, through the transom. And that often is inside underneath here where you can't see it. This particular boat, the way it's set up, it's clear to me that it was intended for this to be mounted to the tilt tube. Problem is that the hole here where the cable comes through is high enough up so that as this cable exits, it's too high to go through the tilt tube. If I try and put it into the tilt tube, you can see because of the angle that it's hitting here, I can't get it in. The temptation might be to try and bend this to like just sneak it in there if it's close. Well, you don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, the instructions specifically warn you against doing that. The instructions actually caution you it may be necessary to lift the outboard motor to get this to go in. Now, if I lift the outboard motor to get this to go in, I already checked and it appears as though this will work. The cable will have a slight bend in it, which is okay. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lift my motor, which is going to be a pain in the butt, but it's the right way to do it without damaging this cable. All right, so hook up this. Let you guys do it some. Pick up some slack. Go one way, we'll see which way. All right, it's the other way. Perfect.
What is the other way there?
Take in the slack. Keep going. Okay, wait.
Keep going?
Yeah. What are you doing?
As far as I can go.
You should back up. Is there dirt in there?
Yeah, dirt, rock.
Oh, you should have cleaned that out. Oh man. All right, stop.
Why?
I don't want to get dump all dirt all over my motor. I thought we got that all out. All right, let's try this again. Let's try not to mess it up this time, all right, Mark?
Yeah, me?
Whoa! What are you doing? You gotta hook this on.
Yeah, my fault again?
What I could see, yeah.
Am I doing it right?
Yeah. Have to take up a lot more because we lowered the bucket some. Okay, all right. Now slow down. Slow, go easy. All right, go ahead. All right, hold on. You should be standing. Look, you should be standing here.
Yeah.
Just so if for some weird reason this were to fail and something were to fall, you'd be nowhere you'd be off to the side, nowhere near it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Okay, slow. Stop. I don't want to lift it up any more than I have to get this in. See, practically goes in now.
Lift it down a little bit more.
Yeah, not quite. A little bit more, higher a little more. So close.
A little bit more.
Wait a minute.
I can do one more.
Once I get this out here, I think it'll be okay.
Careful, the motor's about to fall off that side.
Well, it's not really going to fall off anyway because of the... Yeah, go up a little higher. Ah! My seat fell. Okay, so now... Well, actually, see, that's something else going on there. This doesn't want to fit through the tube.
Oh no, wrong size?
No, I guarantee it's the right size. It's got to be something in that tube, corrosion or something.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have to find some way to clean that out. Big drill bit or something.
Yeah.
So I can't even see any light through this thing. What if there's a mud dauber's nest in there? Be a great place for them to make one. Need something smaller and sharper and longer. Oh. Dirt and rust. I think I'm going to want to clean out that tube a lot better than that. And I don't think there's supposed to be grease in there because it's not a tight fit for that. Well, it kind of is actually, right? And maybe it should have grease in it. Well, I just looked up online and sure enough, not only is this tube supposed to be clean, it is supposed to be well lubed. Matter of fact, the modern tubes, apparently they put a grease fitting right on here so you can pump grease right into there without taking it apart. So if I pump white lithium greases, which is what they recommend, if I pump that, if I put that in there now, it's just gonna mix with that oxide dust and dirt and everything that's in there and turn it into mud. So I really want to try and clean that better. So I'm gonna see what I can find appropriate size to run through there. So for starters, I figured I'd figure out what the diameter is of this rod. And that's 5/8. There's probably just a big old chunk of rust or something in there because it goes through if I just push it through, but see, can't turn it when it gets all the way in there. So I'm just gonna run it on this drill. It's a Morse tapered drill bit, but I have an adapter that actually fits this drill chuck. showing the audience at home. At home. Alright, let's give this a whirl. Doesn't go all the way through because it's not long enough, but see now, it goes in pretty far. Oh yeah, it's already better. Still a little bit of resistance there. Let me see if I can. All right, 5/8 inch rod, and it looks like a 41 64th inch drill bit is going to be the perfect size for cleaning out that hole. And as luck would have it, I have one. The only thing that would have been luckier is if I had one that was actually long enough to go all the way through. What I'll do is I'll run it in as far as I can from this side. And I could do the same from the other side. You know what? That's still not going to get all the way through. That's a bummer. I'll do what I can do. I lucked out, I kept digging and I found another one. Found actually a few more, but these are my longest ones. But this will reach past the halfway point, so if I run this in from each side all the way, I should be all set. I decided I'm going to use this white lithium grease because that's what I saw somebody else use online, and it was like a Mercury Outboard dealer or something showing how to lubricate this. So figure if that's what they're going to use, that's what I'll use. That's better. All right. Almost done with the steering. This is all rusted inside this tube. The steering rod has to ride in there. Whoever had this boat before had some other kind of setup on here. I don't think they were using this type of hookup, which is weird because the cable had the same nut on it. Oh, well, what am I thinking? This is my motor. It didn't come with this boat, so obviously. All right. How long till supper?
About 15 minutes or so.
Good. Well, it smells making me hungry. I can smell it out here.
What else you got to do on that?
Well, I just realized today that there's a piece of linkage that goes from this when it comes out the other side here and comes over and attaches to this that's missing. So I'll have to get that, unfortunately. Then the steering will be all hooked up, and then I've just got the new cable came in for the shifter, and I gotta put that mechanism back together with the new parts and clean it up.
Motor's all ready? All working?
Well, it was working last season when I put it away, so hopefully hopefully it'll be ready to go with not much effort. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, just about ready to quit for tonight. Pretty much done. Battery died before. All you missed was I lubed this up, and what I did was I turned the steering wheel to fully extend this rod to expose the part of the rod that goes back into the cable, and I also coated that with lithium grease. Then I gave this a really liberal coating of lithium grease, put it through the tube, and I tightened up this nut really tight. So one more thing I want to do before I quit for tonight, because I'm going to have to quit because I don't have the intermediate rod, which is going to go from here and has a dog leg shape and attaches to here. And that dog leg shape allows this to kind of articulate so that you can tilt the motor up without interfering with the steering linkage. So the last thing I want to do is I want to just go up to the helm there. I'm going to turn the steering wheel from lock to lock. I just want to make sure that I don't feel anything binding. All right, feels good. And now I counted how many turns it takes to go from lock to lock, which is about 3.5, and then I came back about 1 3/4 turns. So that's roughly where the rod should be for the center. In other words, going straight right about here. So now I know my length of my dog leg should be about this long. So I can see if I can find a correct one online.